What's up, Thumpers? Welcome to another episode of Hyper Heroes here on Hyper Rabbit Power Go. It's been a very interesting night. We just experienced an earthquake. This is the second one, second big one in two.
This is officially Earthquake Watch. Hector,
Third, yeah.
Earthquake Watch.
just like Brian Fantana.
2019.
2019.
Yeah, so we're going to try to get through as much
Watch.
of this as we can without another earthquake happening.
Yeah.
But before we get going, I want to let you guys know that obviously on Patreon, if you guys want to support us, Patreon is an amazing way to support us. Patreon.com/HyperRPG. We're going to be dropping an audio commentary for Men in Black, number one. Super excited to do that commentary. And we've also been posting a lot of other stuff. We have obviously our Hyper Heroes episodes, our podcast. If you're listening on the podcast, jump on over to the YouTube channel. If you're on YouTube and you want to listen to the podcast, you can access it all early on Patreon, or you can check it out on Apple Music, Spotify, or Apple Podcast, Spotify, SoundCloud, all that stuff. Man, I'm like a little shook from that.
Language.
You know what? I don't think I've recovered fully yet.
No.
So let's get through this mother
Language.
do this.
so we can get out of here.
Man, it earthquakes once and all y'all start cussing so much.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Does
You
it,
got one of
need to be,
these.
does it need to be more on my mouth, or do we need to turn me up a little
just
bit?
all up in your
I
mouth.
think just
Okay,
just
great.
swallow
I'll
the
just
microphone.
hold it
Just
here the
swallow
whole
the
time.
microphone,
Swallow the
Hector.
microphone.
I'll just hold it here.
Yeah, that's
Because you
fine.
sounded good in the test.
I
Now
know.
you just got to swallow the microphone.
That's right. Are we
Okay.
trying a no cursing episode this time? Even though I already broke that.
I'm gonna,
Both
we're
of
gonna
y'all
have to-
did.
I have more editing to do now because of
Okay.
earthquakes.
Sorry.
So cool. Here we go.
Thanks, Earthquake.
I know,
You just
seriously.
ruined everything.
So with Warner Brothers not coming to Comic-Con, I guess it's not a surprise that these news bits are starting to come out. But reportedly, Andy Muschietti, who's the director of It Chapter 1 and It Chapter 2, is in discussions to be taking over as the director of the Flash movie.
Oh, yeah.
As I mentioned, he is the director of It Chapter 1 and 2. What do you
It's
wanna
the
say?
highest grossing clown movie. And
Yes.
I feel like we can say that
Clown car.
confidently. Yeah. It blew
The
Clown Car
threequel.
out of
It
the
blew- yeah,
water.
yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Blew it
that
out of the water.
non-existent movie out of the
Exactly.
water.
Totally.
Yeah.
Get out of here, Clown Car.
So he's in talks to direct this film. Jonathan Goldstein and John Francis Daley were previously on board to direct
And right.
and write the movie. Apparently, Ezra Miller wanted to go a more darker route, and those directors wanted to go a lighter tone and do something a little different with the Flash movie.
Okay.
And because of that, Ezra Miller had decided to take on writing duties with Grant Morrison.
Right.
They did a pass on the script. Warner Brothers ended up saying, no, that's not the direction that we want to go in. So it seems like all parties, except for Ezra Miller, sort of went their own way. Jonathan
Yeah,
Goldstein, John
yeah.
Francis Daley are no longer directing that movie. They've moved on to other stuff. They are going to be, Warner Brothers is apparently going to be bringing on Christina Hodson, who was the writer on Bumblebee.
Yeah.
And on Birds of Prey.
Yeah.
Okay.
To do or not a pass. I think it's going to be like a full page one rewrite.
Write the script.
Yeah, so that excites me because I loved Bumblebee.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see what she's done with Birds of Prey.
She's crushing it.
Yeah, I think she's doing a great job from everything that we've seen and heard from Birds of Prey and Bumblebee. And Andy Muschietti, I think, has proven himself. You know, with It Chapter 1, he did Mama before that. And I think It Chapter 2 is going to be more of Chapter 1 in terms of the quality, the scares, the brutality, and then just building out that universe.
Right.
You know, for this, it's the final chapter really, because
Right.
it's only a part 1 and a part 2. But what are your guys' feelings about The Flash? Because The Flash has been a movie that has been through the ringer. It's been through so many sets of directors.
I want to ask Augustine, are you full on, is this in Gambit territory where you think this movie's never going to happen,
Not
or
yet.
are you optimistic
I'm
about
not full dumpster fire yet. We're not code dumpster fire yet. I
it?
feel
Thank
like.
you.
Is that better?
Now I'm back.
Can you hear yourself better?
That was me the whole time.
Okay,
That's, yeah,
there you
got
go.
you, boo.
I
So
can.
I feel like this movie, it's in a weird limbo stage. I feel like Ezra Miller is the type of guy who kind of wears his emotions on his sleeve.
Yeah.
You can really tell like what he's feeling, what he's thinking as far as like all this stuff goes. Remember, not too long ago we heard that news where he was like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna do everything," and
Yeah.
he wanted to take over everything. And I admire that kind of a passion, at least
Yes.
that drive to where
Sure.
he's like, I believe in this character, and I feel like he could do a good job. And I feel like a guy like Ezra Miller who is. I don't want to call him eccentric because he's not like full on eccentric,
Sure.
but he's very
I would
into.
say eccentric.
That's
That's
a
particular.
decent word.
not in a bad way.
Not in a bad way, yeah.
Tied into passionate.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like if he's trying to push this for some reason,
Yeah.
and I feel like that reason is because there is a story there to be told.
Right.
Like even though with the other movies like Gambit and even Venom before like all this other stuff started happening, didn't feel like they were coming from a place where somebody cared about that character. It felt like
Right.
it was a movie studio grab to make as much money off of a well-known character.
Right.
This feels like there's people behind the scenes realizing that they have something and they're trying to push it. And so I think this is good, and I think they have some good talent behind it. And I feel like Ezra Miller sticking around is also a good sign.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm into this one.
I am. This is like the same as when Don Cheadle took over playing Rhodey for Terrence Howard.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mark Ruffalo for Edward Norton. I didn't
Yeah.
consider any of those downgrades
Right.
or even necessarily upgrades. It was
Right.
like a side grade. It was like I think both of those actors, those sets of actors were super talented.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, Mark Ruffalo taking over for I'm like, cool, not an upgrade, not a downgrade. You know, I'm not trying to insult either sort of party. I know that originally Flash was going to be done by the guy that did the movie Dope.
Right.
Right,
And I was
Famuyiwa.
Rick Famuyiwa, and I was really looking forward to Famuyiwa's take on it.
Right.
And when he left the project, his sort of statement sort of revealed kind of a bummer for me of the studio wasn't on board with his sort of vision or his sort of take on it, which was a bummer. Then you had the John Francis Daley, Jonathan Goldstein team, which I love the movie Game Night. I
haven't seen that yet.
Dude, I love
I have
it.
not seen that.
Now, they directed Vacation with Ed Helms, and I haven't seen that yet.
I dislike that.
Okay,
movie.
okay.
I
Fine,
remember
fine,
that.
fine,
Yeah,
fine.
I remember that review.
I'm sure that it's not great.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll watch it, but I'm not a huge Vacation franchise guy to begin with, so it's like whatever, that's fine. But Game Night I thought was super, super great, and they've also those writer directors have also written a ton of movies, including
Yes.
Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yes.
Now for me,
Ooh.
Homecoming had the heart that
Yeah,
I want
yeah,
the
yeah.
Flash to have. That's
Yeah.
the whole point. Is that I wanted the Flash.
yeah.
What the most important thing for me for that character, especially the way that he's been set up with the rest of the franchise and
Right.
compared to the other characters, is
Right.
is he is heart.
Right.
So
Right.
am I bummed that I'm not going to get to see those two guys tackle this character?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But everything you said about It director, I agree with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And even though it's got the horror stuff, which is maybe going to be something that might appease any creative party, including Ezra Miller, because he maybe wanted the Flash to go a darker route.
Right.
So and again, you compare this decision to we got James Wan on Aquaman,
Yeah.
and we got David F. Sandberg on Shazam.
Right.
Those
Yeah.
are
Right.
horror
Both
movie
horror.
directors,
Right.
and they turned out movies that I think had great moments of heart.
Yes,
Which
I
is
agree.
basically what I was looking for with those characters, and I think
Yeah.
DC needs to have more of that.
Right.
And especially with the Flash, again, with the Flash coming in.
Right.
So yeah, this guy can handle that, and hopefully still
Right.
satiate whatever any parties want. We're like, we want it to be darker and have horror. Okay. But this guy's also specialty in
Yeah.
it. Chapter 1, at least, because it's all we've seen, was the heart of those kids.
Yeah.
So I'm calling it now because of his cast in Chapter 2. I'm going James McAvoy as Captain Cold in The Flash.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Really? Captain Cold?
Leonard
Okay,
Snart. He'd be
okay.
a great Leonard Snart.
Yeah, I could see that. I
Great
could see
Leonard
that.
Snart. Because he's already done the lead in a
Yeah.
superhero movie. So let's give him the, you know what I mean? Let's give him
Yeah.
the side
Oddball
villain.
side
Sure.
character
Yep,
guy.
yep.
Yeah.
Who he
yeah.
could bring some really meaty pathos
Well,
to.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw some good examples of that in Far From Home, so we can talk about that later, though. We can talk about that later,
And
though.
we will.
And we will talk about that later.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the I don't know, I guess it's the casting of the director. If it all goes through, because right now there's no deal out yet. They've just been a conversation, but they're gonna make a deal or make an offer, I should say, for this director to come on board and do this movie. And I think it kind of goes to show that Warner Brothers, as much as they want to recruit new talent, which I think they do in other ways, when it comes to their directors, they seem to always kind of go back to people that they previously worked with.
Right.
You know,
And,
yeah.
and so far, other than Patty Jenkins guys,
yeah.
and so far, other than James Wan white guys, right? Rick
Uh,
Famuyiwa was going to be their
sure.
black guy director
Yeah.
that did, that was
going
to
to fill that quota.
Yeah,
The guy was going to fill that
yeah,
quota.
yeah. To at
Yeah,
least
yeah, yeah.
I think
get some new voices and perspective and stuff.
yeah,
So. But Ava DuVernay is doing New Gods.
yes,
Which is
and I think you're right. I think also though you kind of have to look at the background of where those directors came from. David Sandberg is Swedish, and the Swedish filmmaking scene is very unique and different from American. And I think Andy Muschietti is either Spanish or Italian.
Oh, cool.
And
That's
I don't
probably
know,
Italian.
And I don't.
Muschietti sounds
Yeah, and I
Italian.
don't know.
And James
if-
Wan is that great Asian Australian, which is awesome. I love that. Yeah.
And I think I don't know if Andy Muschietti has actually made movies in Europe before he came to America. I think Mama was already an American production because it has Jessica Chastain. I think it's a Warner Brothers movie, if I'm not wrong.
I think you're right.
In any case,
No idea.
Yeah.
In any case, like I really like It Chapter 1, and I really like Andy Muschietti, and I like the style, and I like the character building and the story and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's going to be a good fit for them, and I think that's the right fit for what they're trying to do. with the superhero movies.
Agreed.
I think there are elements that he could bring to it that can make it more horror-esque, kind of like what James Wan did with Aquaman. But I don't necessarily feel like the entirety of that story should be in a dark place.
Agreed.
I think Flash has these elements that he can kind of weave into us, or these tones that you can weave in and out of the story when you're dealing with the murder of his mother. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a darker, more,
deeper emotional
tone. But there's also a lightheartedness and a fun to the Flash.
I wonder if, speaking of that, if that's going to even be an element in the final film, because that was something that was coming from like deleted scenes from Justice League. Did we ever even see Billy Crudup as
in Justice League? We did.
He was in Justice League, right? He had a scene. Okay, so he's in jail, so they have established that. All right, then they kind of need to do that then.
Yeah,
they shouldn't just not ever do that that backstory. So all right, never mind what I said. Okay,
you saw Chapter 1, right?
Of course I did.
Yeah.
You love it.
Oh my god, dude! I love me some horror movies.
Yeah.
I had not been scared by a horror movie in a long time.
I feel quality,
man. I feel like this movie tapped into what horror movies should have evolved to at this point, just because everybody just always jumps on the cheap jump scare. Like I don't
with the
get
noise.
I don't get scared by horror movies because a jump scare is coming when everything gets quiet.
Yeah.
And then it's time, it's like music. It's timing. You can tell exactly when that jump scare is. I can, at least. I sit there and I'm like, quiet, jump scare, boom, then it comes out.
Right.
And the theater erupts and I'm just like, yeah, it's right there.
Yeah.
They literally spell it out for you.
Yeah.
Chapter 1 did some shit where just the Pennywise, first of all, his character design was fucking amazing. And then the way they kind of just transformed and morphed his face with all the CGI and the acting and just everything about this movie was terrifying to me.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, the scariest part to me was when it came out of the projector
Oh, yeah.
Did not expect that one.
Yeah, that was great.
And I think what the Chapter 2 trailer did, it continued that trend where you have Jessica Chastain in the house talking to the daughter.
Yes.
But then at the same time, there's elements of her walking in the background, and you're like, oh man, it's just kind of continuing and happening. And I think that's what makes it more terrifying is the fact that it's not relying on quiet,
stupid
and
jump
boom,
scares.
Yeah,
Stupid jump scares. Yeah. It's about building that atmosphere, building
tension,
that tension.
baby.
Like when I'm scared, just like when that earthquake happened, it wasn't because it came out of nowhere. It's because it wouldn't stop.
Yeah,
it
exactly.
just kept going. I'm like, no, now it's time to go.
And then Hector insulted you a little bit, but it's fine.
It's okay.
What? When?
What? No, I'm just kidding.
He said I was so fat that I was shaking the whole building.
No, that's not what you said. I thought you said you were so scared. Remember, I thought it was you.
Exactly.
I thought you were moving your leg.
No, exactly, because my leg is so fat that I was moving the whole building.
No, because your leg is so powerful.
It's
That's
that
why.
third leg, you know what I'm saying?
Thick thighs
Had my eagle
save
powers.
lives. That's right.
You say thick thighs save lives?
That's right.
Save
my
lives.
man.
Yeah, they
That's
do.
right.
Oh, man.
But yeah, I think this is a really good choice, and I think it's a good casting. And as far as what this could mean for the overall DC film universe, I mean, I think it's a way in the positive step.
Yeah.
I feel like Wonder Woman set a good first step. Aquaman definitely set a good second step. So now they just got to keep it going. Let the directors do what they're going to do. And at the end of the day, you'll have a good product. And, maybe we can work with something after that.
Maybe eventually we'll get
Maybe
something
eventually.
interconnected.
Just whatever
Maybe.
gets us a Flash movie.
Yeah, whatever gets us to that.
Whatever gets us to that Flash movie.
Whatever it takes.
That's right. That's right.
You love this microphone, don't you?
No,
mic
man.
back.
I can't put it here because it will fall on my chin. So
What about lifting it?
Oh my God.
Can we tape it?
Oh my God.
Do you know you can move it
Is it good
up and
here?
down?
Is
You
it
know
good
you-
here?
Yeah.
Like Boba Fett?
Yeah, you can.
All right, I'm leaving it
there.
there. Okay, we're good. We're good. We're good.
Here,
Look at
you
you.
can-
Look at you. Learn every day. You know what I'm saying?
I'm trying.
Trying. So the Sandman series is coming to Netflix. Warner Brothers and Netflix are teaming up to create an 11-episode season, I guess, because there's potentially going to be more seasons of this show. But they're creating an 11-episode season of the Sandman, a show that was supposed to be a movie so many times through the 90s and 2000s. I think the last time we had talked about this, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was set to star and direct in that movie.
Yes.
And after that had happened, he left that project. I think he was announced 2012, and then he left it, I think, in 2016.
Wow.
And then not too long after that, Eric Heiser, who's the writer of Arrival, and he also wrote a lot of stuff at Valiant.
Cool.
He was brought on board to script the movie, and then he ended up leaving the project. And when he left the project, he basically told Warner Brothers that this cannot be a movie. Even if you make it a trilogy of movies, it's so deep and rich. It's better served to be an HBO limited series or some kind of other limited series. So they are, in fact, bringing it to Netflix. Neil Gaiman and David S. Goyer are going to executive produce the series.
Okay, at least
Alan
he's involved.
Heinberg is going to be the showrunner, and he's also going to write the first pilot along with Neil Gaiman and David S. Goyer. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. I'm a little sad / surprised that this is not going exclusively to DC Universe. But I understand.
Thank you.
I guess I understand the business decision as to why, because it's going to be a very expensive show.
Absolutely.
So Netflix is going to pay for it.
I still have not. I think this is good because I tried to read the first collection of Sandman books. Could not get into it. It was a tough read, and
I think it's definitely of its time.
It's probably of its time because I didn't know what to expect going in, so I went in just like open. And as I was just going along, I was like, I don't know where this is going. I can't really grab onto anything. I don't know anything about it. And I even know the lady who wrote the book on Sandman. So her name is Tara Prescott, and she tried to explain to me. I'm just like, I don't know yet. So this is going to be a good jumping in point for me.
I'm sure for a lot of people too.
For a lot of people too, because this book has concepts that were tough for me to grab. So I feel like this is one of those things that I feel like kind of Legion is kind of doing, like more mental, more ethereal type of things. I mean, it's kind of weird to say that. I'm sad to say that it's not going to have that movie budget, because it's very. I see it as very VFX heavy.
But it could.
But it could work. Like it could. Legion works, and so I feel like that's really the only comparison that I have right now.
That's a good comparison.
That's what I'm gonna kind of lean into this show kind of being. But I'm excited to watch it. What about you guys?
Same. I mean, pretty much for the reasons you said, too. Yeah. Like, out of all of the Sandman comics, I've only ever read the first volume.
Yeah.
Preludes and Nocturnes, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
And I've read it multiple times to try to, like, kick off, like, okay, I'm going to read the whole thing. And every time I get to the end of volume 1, I'm like, it doesn't grab me. It doesn't, and I think that, like, the art kind of does it for me a little bit, or rather doesn't do it for me, is what I'm saying. Like, the writing's interesting, but I think that it's a little bit.
It's like a very, like, painted style.
But it's also very, at least that first volume is kind of very cartoony and exaggerated. And then when that first volume gets to some real effed up ass, the cartoony style, I'm like, I don't know if this really matches it.
Yeah.
But I know that it's a beloved series, and I feel like in the comic book world, it's similar to when people go like, "Oh, you got to give it 4 seasons," and then I'm like, I don't really have that kind of. Okay, I guess.
Here's
now I've heard that Sandman, like in like a couple volumes in, it's like the art style changes, another artist will come on, and Neil Gaiman, because this is one of his first real major comics works, if not his first major one. Really starts to like solidify is like, oh, okay, comics, got it, because he was coming from like the literary world. Just kind of nails it, and then people love the series as a whole. I haven't seen too many huge fans, diehard fans of the Sandman comics going, oh no, the first volume's the best. No, they all agree. They're like, it gets better. So
maybe I need to give it more of a shot.
We'll do it. We'll wait for the show to come out.
We'll
do it then.
Do you know anything about it?
I read one. I honestly don't remember what it was, but when I worked at DC, I had to convert some of the books to digital.
Sure.
So I had to read one of them, and I don't remember which one it was. And I remember just being very dense and something that, like, it's, in my opinion, I think it's definitely a book or a series of books and a character and a concept that you really kind of need to be in the right headspace to read.
Agreed.
It's not like a Superman or Batman book when you can just pick it up, because it's from the Vertigo imprint or former Vertigo imprint.
Yeah.
So Vertigo obviously was doing like very creative and different and innovative things in the 90s and all that sort of stuff with their books, or 80s and 90s with their books. And for me, it definitely was one of those situations where I was like, man, I need to really like be in a mood to read Sandman. It's not something that I can just open. Like every week on Comics and Coffee, like I can just get through so much stuff, because it's just such not necessarily an easy read, but it's very engaging and entertaining, because it doesn't require so much like emotion from you.
And also, it's a very limited like run that you're gonna get. Just that it's like your weekly episode.
Exactly.
You bust it out in 30 minutes and you're good to go.
So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited to see potentially like what they can do with it, because it is Neil Gaiman. David S. Goyer is kind of like a hit and miss with me.
Right.
He did so much for the Dark Knight trilogy.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily.
He also directed Blade 3.
Yeah, and I haven't necessarily liked all of his. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the first thing he directed. I haven't necessarily loved all of his writing contributions to other DC properties.
Correct.
So we'll see. I'm sort of in the place right now of like, I'm not against them making it. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with it. But ultimately, I'm gonna have to sit down and watch episode 1 before I'm like, oh, I'm in or I'm not.
I do believe I will never be the type of because I'm not that close to the material.
Sure.
The type of fan that's like, oh, they shouldn't even attempt it. The comic is so good.
No.
I'm like, no. You know what? Honestly,
Give it a shot.
From what I've read and from what I know about it, this could be something that could improve upon the original source material, just because look at how far we've come in television since then.
Right.
Look at how far Neil Gaiman has come as a writer.
Right.
Like, he has written such amazing stuff since then that it could be a great opportunity to go back, revisit, tighten things up, fix the, like make it just
tell the
even,
story that he probably maybe wish he could have written before.
Or it's interesting. What if you were to tell this story today? What would it be the same, Neil?
Exactly.
Would it be different? It's like that I'm interested in. So
that's the thing that I'm always
the best Sandman thing ever.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I'm always interested in is how do you take these comic books from the 80s and 90s and how do you infuse a little bit of like modern storytelling and modern whatever's happening in the world, like current events. How do you infuse that into your story?
Current trends, whatever, wherever cinema is at this point.
The same way that the Sandman comic of its time was reflecting the world around Neil Gaiman then.
Right.
What's he thinking about now? What are the creators thinking about now?
Exactly. And, obviously this is a Netflix series and it's going to exist in its own world as it should. I don't think every single DC property should be interconnected with the rest of the DC universe.
Correct.
And this never was.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Right.
No,
part
but,
of Vertigo.
but it's interesting because Vertigo stuff, and then later the Swamp Thing was kind of added to it, and Doom Patrol. It is all its own thing, but like in regular DC Comics, those characters exist, but they maybe not have had the exact specific adventures that they did in their own Vertigo book.
Right.
So the Vertigo book's allowed to pretty much do whatever, but then in the mainstream DC continuity, they'll hint to like, oh yeah, the Doom Patrol, they kind of did this stuff over here. It's crazy. But if something over here like breaks something, they're not concerned with it over here. So like Morpheus, the character, the main character in Sandman, does exist in the regular DC universe, and so do other characters, and obviously so does Swamp Thing and the Doom Patrol and so on and so forth. But it's not like tied continuity. Correct. Yeah.
So the Lord of the Rings Amazon series, which is signed up to do multiple seasons.
And it's going to cost $8 quadrillion.
$1
You thought billion? No, homie. Quadrillion.
It will cost the country of New Zealand.
The entire country. They're going to sell. They're going to have to sell off sheep by sheep by sheep.
That's right. That's right. So J.A. Bayona has been announced as the director of the pilot and the second episode of the Lord of the Rings series. So my experience with J.A. Bayona is very limited. I have only seen A Monster Calls and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I've seen The Impossible also. I really did not like Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom.
Same.
And that has unfortunately been a trend for me with both of those movies.
Yeah.
I don't have anything against those directors. I don't have anything against the people at Universal. I don't have anything Jurassic Park, the
Chris
franchise.
Pratt was in them.
Yeah,
so,
Chris Pratt. And I like him and I like Bryce Dallas Howard.
Yeah.
But I have not been a fan of those movies. I think they're a big step down from the original, at least. I know there's very differing opinions on that. That's totally fine. But I really like The Monster Calls, and I actually really, really love The Impossible, which had Tom Holland in it.
Yes, it did.
And
Ewan
McGregor.
Was Chris Hemsworth in that too?
No, it was Ewan McGregor and Naomi Watts.
Oh, cool. Okay,
Yeah.
nice.
Well, I need to watch at least that one before The Impossible before I have a full-on opinion about this.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know this person at all.
We've also seen good directors work on a big studio thing, and it doesn't turn out that way, and it's not necessarily their fault, and all that
or
stuff.
Or it could be like a J.J. Abrams situation where J.J. knocked out that whole first pilot of Lost.
Yeah.
So who knows? It could be a step up in the air. I'm just glad that there's news coming out about this.
Yeah.
It's going to be really interesting to see where this show goes. Apparently, word on the street is that it's going to focus on Aragorn, and it's a younger version of him, and I don't know. It's really weird. I have so much writing on this show, which sucks because I don't want to. I want to go in it kind of like open. And
I have a question. Can I ask it? Do you know, has this been revealed? Has this been confirmed? Is this in the same franchise as the movies, as The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit? But it is in that same continuity.
Yes. So there's only one Middle Earth. It's still part of the world.
Sure.
So it's
even though it's a different age, I get that. But this show is not supposed to be like a clean slate.
No.
It's like the characters in this movie will eventually, in the next age, be in the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit films.
Exactly. So we're gonna. So the whole Tolkien universe is super in depth, super interconnected, and there's a lot of stories to tell, which is great, and which is what I want to see from all of this stuff. It's just I feel like the bar is set so high at this point with those movies.
because the Hobbits kind of brought it down a little bit.
Well, yeah. I forget that those movies exist most of the time,
I think by the time the series probably comes out, you're going to be close to 20 years.
From the Hobbits?
From the Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings.
Which is
definitely
insane.
We're already at 20 years from when they started filming.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That's this year's
So
20th anniversary.
I think, like, if anything, I think I'm not that I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan. I'm just not as invested in the lore like you are.
Yeah.
I think for me, the big job that this series has is to recapture to the best of its ability, because it doesn't have the budget,
Right.
capture to the best of its ability the magic and the heart and the fun and the playfulness and the humor. It needs to capture the tone of what Lord of the Rings, the original Lord of the Rings trilogy did.
Yeah.
And I think if you're able to do that, then there's a really good opportunity for you to win over a new fan base, to please a fan base that's been established for 20 years, and to encourage people to then go and say, great, now that I know this series, even if it's not the full series one, like if you love the first season, I'm going to go and I'm going to rewatch or watch maybe for the first time the Lord of the Rings.
The initial Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
The only thing that's kind of, I don't know how to feel about this, is that the Tolkien estate is behind this one. They weren't behind the initial 3 that Peter Jackson made. They weren't exactly happy with the changes that
Because they didn't
he
realize the
made.
potentiality.
So they couldn't endorse it. They were like, we don't endorse this version that you're doing. Like,
But they're endorsing this?
But they're endorsing this one.
Like this endorsement?
I don't know what kind of
Or like-
endorsement
they let Fox
have.
make that Tolkien movie, didn't they?
Right, exactly. So there's that Tolkien movie. They probably, whoa there. Rice all over the floor.
Is everything okay?
You okay?
Kaiju, don't touch.
Was that a result of the earthquake?
Here comes Kaiju.
Oh, okay.
Here comes Kaiju.
But yeah, so it's strange, and we won't see what.
Couldn't it be a positive thing?
It could be a positive. It could definitely be a positive thing.
Yeah.
The problem is that Tolkien's writings sometimes can get kind of boring. So if they're behind, like honestly, the books. As much as I love the series, the books are a chore to get through.
Sometimes.
Because he goes through these details, he goes through all this stuff, and
here's the thing. Here's the thing. There's a reason they cut Tom Bombadil.
No joke.
If Tom Bombadil shows up in this TV show, I'm gonna be like, this sucks. Get him out of here. I don't care. Who gives a shit? Get this useless character out of here.
So that's
He's
the
the
thing.
worst.
Like, I hope they don't focus on a character like Tom Bombadil, because he doesn't really pop up before in the like prehistory of before Lord of the Rings. He pops up in Lord of the Rings. Do you guys know what he does in Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, he just like sits back and almost just saves the universe, but he's like, oh, I'm too powerful. Never mind.
Yeah, kind of. So he gets the ring. So Frodo hands him the ring. He gets it, throws it up in the air, and makes the ring disappear. Potentially saying that he could be one of the most powerful forces in the universe. But then he's like, all right, peace out. That's it. That's basically what it is. And he has a super hot wife.
I'm going to go hang out with my hot wife.
Yeah, apparently. And so he just goes and hangs out with his hot wife.
Tolkien was Tolkien a little bit when he's
throwing
writing
himself in.
This is going to be so tight.
Yeah. And so it's things like that like
Oh my God.
I don't know what they're going to latch onto.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm a little too invested at this point as a fan, like too close to the material to give a fair judgment on what's going to happen. So I feel like at this point I just kind of need to watch it episode by episode, digest it, and figure out exactly what they're going to do. But I love that there's at least news coming out of this.
Yeah, because I feel like they announced it so long ago and nothing has really been
I've been trying
happening.
to start a podcast off of this, dude. I'm getting one nugget of information every 3 to 6 months. I'm just like, I can't do that.
I think that's everything.
Okay.
I think that wraps it up. I know a lot of people are going to be in the comments asking us about our opinions on Witcher. Honestly, I don't know anything about that property.
Oh, on Witcher?
Yeah, The Witcher.
Cool.
With Henry
I also
Cavill.
don't know anything about that property.
So it's one of those conversations of like, hey, how do these photos look? They look great. I don't
You
know.
need to tweet at Emily. She'll let you know because
I'm sure she will.
we're not the gamers, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
We're not
that's
the
true.
gamers.
And also, I know
We'll
there's a lot of Comic-Con news coming out, but right before Comic-Con, we'll do an episode that focuses on Comic-Con and let you guys know about all the fun panels that are coming. I'm super excited about the Batman Beyond 20th anniversary panel happening in Hall H.
yeah.
So we'll talk about that
yeah.
stuff as we get closer to the con. I don't want to do an episode where we have to constantly give updates as to this was announced, this was announced, this was announced.
Do it all in one.
Not about it.
Just do it all in one. It'll
do
be
it.
our Comic-Con preview episode, and I'm super excited about that. But in the meantime, guys, make sure you guys check out the podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Patreon and social media. We're going to be posting stuff all weekend.
Why should they check out the Patreon? What's
We're going to
happening
be
on
doing
the
a
Patreon?
commentary of Men in Black, the original.
Just ride with me. Just ride with me.
And also,
just
you get
ride
early
with
access
me,
to the
just
podcast,
ride.
the show, the reviews, and everything that we do. So if you want early access, a first look, as a lot of impatient people in the YouTube comments have been asking for.
Don't worry about that.
Just jump on Patreon,
Yeah,
baby.
yeah.
You'll get first look. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next week. Bye.